Yeah, you ain't so bad.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Well, I'm wearing my Mighty Mix boxing sweatshirt.
I see you're wearing Mighty Mix. It's just every week you just come to the table with like a promotion from this movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think your pile of books is impressive. I can't imagine what your sweatshirt pile looks like.
Yeah, you don't want to see it.
We all have.
I have a feeling that a lot of those are not through official channels. So there's something to be found for anything, I think, out there, right?
Absolutely.
Bad enough.
These ones that I get, the ones like the Continental one and this Mighty Mix one, are from Last Exit to Nowhere, which I gave you guys the hats, the alien and the thing hats.
Yep.
So they always get permission to do whatever they're going to do. So it's not a dodgy site.
Gotcha. Well, if anybody wants a TMI t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a hoodie or a tank top, you can go to our TeePublic page.
Yes, and Jeff has done some really cute art of the three of us.
Yeah, and TeePublic or Last Exit to Nowhere. Hey, we're available. We'll do commercials for you.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go. We'll promote them. Start making
you want to sponsor this podcast? You want to sponsor this podcast?
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Do we have any news this week?
We do. Do we want to at least talk about what we're going to talk about?
We're back in a pugilistic arena this week.
Big word.
Every once in a while, we have a new boxing movie that comes out, and we have to. Usually, it's a Creed movie, and of course, we've got to pull out one from the Rocky canon to go along with it. We did it with Creed 2 and Rocky 4 eons ago, and we're doing it again. There's Creed 3, new out in theaters, and we are covering Rocky 3.
And I have to say, this is pretty spot on pairing. So yes, we have a little bit of news we could talk about. First and foremost, we have to at least acknowledge rest in peace, Mr. Tom Sizemore. You know, I open up the news and there it is, and I'm like, oh, that's sad. So let's talk about this third time's a charm, because apparently the powers that be are going to try and reboot Hellboy once again with a new actor. So we had Mr. Ron Perlman.
Movies without Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman for 2 movies, and Ron Perlman actually played him in a few of the animated versions as well. And then David Harbaugh came in for 1. Yeah, different take. But now we got this Jack Kesey, and I don't know this gentleman. He looks younger, and I think that they're going to play into the idea of a younger version of Hellboy. This is Millennium Medium. And it's going to be set in 1950s Appalachia. Do we need a third Hellboy iteration? Maybe. Mike Mignola, the creator, is co-writing the script. So maybe stick close to the source material.
Maybe.
I really like the Ron Perlman movies. So do
I.
Absolutely adore the first Hellboy. It was one of those movies I came home from the theater and just like blow by blow told my wife the entire story, and then months later when she finally watched it, she's like, "This is the movie you were raving about?" And I'm like, "Yes."
I like the second one even better than the first one of the first two.
You know what's funny? Yeah. I experienced a reversal on the second one. The first time I saw it, I was like, I'm not that into this. But then over time, I started to really appreciate it, especially because it feels so much more like a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Does.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, no, he leans into it.
And I was very excited about the reboot with David Harbour. It's just, unfortunately, it wasn't, the right vehicle or the right time or the right movie. So we'll give him another shot. We don't want the character to go away. And Ron Perlman, I'm sure, doesn't want to sit in the makeup chair these days for however many hours it takes to make him Hellboy.
Listen, all I got to do is put some dots on his face. They'll fix it in post now anyways. He doesn't have to be on set anymore.
Because that was one of the great things about it, and still is, even with the David Harbour version, is that he's real. He's there. It's not a CGI character.
No, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I did find out we didn't cover this, but the Gerard Butler movie Plane.
Mm-hmm.
You lost me. You lost me a Gerard Butler movie.
Yeah, well, it's getting a sequel, and guess what the title is?
Is it Train?
Plane 2?
You are so close. No, 2. Why would they put 2 in there? That's very complicated. Ship.
Oh, okay.
So I can see that. I can see the review headlines already. Ship happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Train is coming.
Train is coming. You know you're gonna have to exhaust every one of these.
Monorail.
Oh, you beat me to monorail. Damn you.
Segway. It could be a golf cart. It could be a number of things.
School bus. That's too many words. Bus. So the only other thing I want to bring up, which we're going to talk about this next week, but Ghostface has been popping up all over the country. So just like
I haven't encountered him yet, though.
If somebody comes up behind me in a Ghostface, I'm punching this people.
Like officially or just random people?
No, I think it's just like what they did with Megan and the Smile
viral promotion.
That's
dangerous. That's like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that. If he has like a rubber knife or something, someone's gonna get shot.
But if someone came up behind me and started talking in Roger Jackson's voice,
you're gonna melt.
You'd be walking arm in arm down the street.
I'd be like, I love you.
Come home with me. I'm here to kill you.
Come to dinner. I've got places to go. It's really late.
Really, come home with my son and husband. Gotta go. He kills himself. So that's really all the news I have, unless anybody.
I think we covered it.
So I guess we need to talk about Creed 3 first then. Okay. I just want to let the listeners know that I petitioned really hard to pair this up with Magic Mike's Last Dance, since that is also the third in the franchise, but I was shot down.
Did you dream that, Jeff? Because I don't remember.
You never said that.
Of course I did.
It would have been futile, I think, even if you had.
So.
Oh, wait. It was my wife who to see that.
So I need to tell you guys, this week at the Alamo, I thought Jim would be dying of happiness if he saw this pre-show.
Oh, boy.
Welcome
to the Alamo pre-show.
They had a clip from an 80s show with like a bunch of kids dancing to Gonna Fly Now. That was like the first thing they had. Then they had this dance instructional video, like one of those videos you see in the 80s, like how to do a certain kind of dance. And it was a dance called the Mike Tyson. Are you guys familiar with that?
No. I never learned this one on the dance floor.
There was a
clip. There's the biting of ears?
No, it involved there's an uppercut in the dance.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah. There's a clip from a Bollywood film that had like this insane boxing match that wasn't even realistic. There was a trailer for Rocky 3.
Make it sound like Bollywood movies are realistic.
There was a trailer for Rocky 3. I was like, okay, well played.
Okay.
There was a laugh-in clip with Sammy Davis Jr. boxing Wilt Chamberlain, which was amazing.
About a 4-foot difference there.
Yeah. But the real prize of this was a music video featuring Mr. T called Treat Your Mother Right.
That's right. You treat your mother right.
And then
pity the fool.
It's from that video that I sent the picture of the box to you guys. That was
the box,
Be Somebody box that was in the lobby.
Yeah.
This thing is so insane. He's basically singing a song about all the times he hurt his mom, every wrinkle he put on her face, all the things he did when he was a kid that was bad. Don't do this. Treat your mother right.
She wrote it, by the way. She made him sing this.
Did you give Henry the side eye during this performance?
I did. I was like,
you
taking notes. Right.
Did Mr. T mention don't throw medicine balls at your mom? Really hard. It's a callback to a conversation before we hit record. So we'll get into it with Rocky 3. But yeah, his mom was not happy with his Clubber Lang role. At least part of it.
No.
All right. Creed 3.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we did our homework and watched 1 and 2 again as a refresher, or no?
I watched the whole series from Rocky 1.
Oh, wow.
I watched 9 movies this week.
Yeah, see, I have to work. They frown on me watching TV while I'm driving.
I mean, I got lucky because, the last few Rocky movies are all about an hour and a half long. I mean, they get shorter. The Creed movies are actually on the long side compared to...
This one, I think, was the shortest.
It's the shortest of the 3. Yeah. But, I watched all of them. So I've been through a complete emotional journey.
Woo.
And I do want to say that, I don't know if you guys noticed about me, but I'm very susceptible to the sports film. Like I definitely get emotionally involved.
And none better to get emotionally involved with than these movies, which are, most sports movies are. They're made to tug on the heartstrings, the underdog story.
Yeah, I'm on board with the emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
in this regard, you're like, fine, manipulate me.
Yeah. Because you know how it's going to end.
There's no surprises, right?
That's the thing.
Spoiler alert, Rocky does not win the first movie. Creed does not win his first fight.
You know how it's going to end, but it's okay because you're sort of there to be with the emotional journey of the characters, right? And I do have to say, though, having watched the whole series from beginning to end this week, even though I understand about external factors, the argument of Stallone with Erwin Winkler, and also after the last film, Stallone did say he was going to step back and he wasn't going to play Rocky anymore. And Michael B. Jordan wanted Creed to have, his own film without Rocky, the shadow of Rocky standing over him. It still feels, even though this is a good movie, that there's kind of a Rocky-shaped hole in the heart of this movie.
Yeah, he's not mentioned, only peripherally.
There's one line about a fight with him and Apollo, I think. But
and they feel like they did try to call back to Rocky when he's walking out to his fight with Damien, and he's saying 1 step, 1 round, 1 punch at a time, right? That's what Rocky tells him in the first Creed film. And I felt like it was a little callback, like acknowledging like Rocky's still there with him mentally. Yeah. But you just can't get away from the fact that it's really Stallone's series. I mean, and it feels weird to not to have even like a phone call,
right.
Yeah. And they even did, you heard the strains of Gonna Fly Now.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
At the end. Yeah. Yeah. Well, not setting this in Philadelphia doesn't help either. Like you're completely removing that character now. This is missing. Yeah. Rocky was the heart of the first 2 movies.
Even though they put Adonis's, character forward and Rocky plays a supporting role, you still have that feeling like he should be there, kind of like the way Mickey is for Rocky.
Correct.
Yeah. Or even the way that Apollo is there for him in Rocky 3. I was thinking this myself watching Creed 3, but, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. If Stallone doesn't want to take part and Michael B. Jordan wants to continue with these movies, he's got to make them his own eventually.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, but it's... Yeah.
And I'm not saying it like as a knock on Michael B. Jordan. I'm saying it just something, it just feels, it doesn't feel right.
No,
especially after watching 8 previous movies that feature him completely.
All you got to do is watch Rocky 3, though. They just stole the entire script for Rocky 3.
Well, the one thing I will give them is they did not make Jonathan Majors a relative of Clubber Lang. I'm like, that's still coming, I think. That is still coming.
Oh, I think they would have. That would have already happened.
No. I think that's untapped. That's an untapped opportunity right there.
So we can jump around, but they set this up at the end of the movie. They are now the Rocky and Apollo relationship.
Right.
Exactly what they're going for. And I will say this: Jonathan Majors is unbelievable This guy, I'm madly in love with this guy. It is ridiculous the amount of emotion that is just bubbling beneath the surface, and the way he holds himself. And he's not a bad guy. They don't say he's not he's not a Clubber Lang that's out. I mean, yeah, he is out to prove himself, but he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he's got the know-how to back it up. Even though he manipulates in order to get into the situation, but fantastic. He really steals this movie.
And
we just talked about him 2 weeks ago with Kang.
And I agree with you, but I think therein lies the problem for me. I didn't hate him enough.
Yeah.
And this is maybe I see your point, Jeff, about wanting to talk about Rocky 3 first.
Yeah, no, I almost feel like you can't because with
Rocky 3, Rocky 4, you hate his opponents. And you were almost on your feet in the theater. I remember seeing Rocky 3, and this was my favorite movie during that year of 1982.
Yeah, I am. After watching this, I am now convinced that Rocky 3 is my favorite movie, and it's probably the one I've watched least over the years. 4 is always a go-to.
I never hated Jonathan May, even when he had the gun out. And, you realized he did the Tanya Harding, which was so obvious, by the way.
Yes. I just have the same thing. I was like, he's Nancy Kerrigan.
Oh,
I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, is nobody asking this guy in jail? Who put you up to this? Let's think who could benefit from this. Oh,
well, Adonis is being, like I said, he's being manipulated. He's being
manipulated because he feels guilty, right?
I'm like, I was thinking to myself,
absolutely.
I was thinking to myself, how brilliant would it be if it turns out that Adonis was in on this too? So I'm like, are they going to have the nerve to do that?
No,
they didn't.
No, but again, watching these two side by side, you've got Creed now who is retired, where in Rocky 3, he was set to retire. This was his last fight. I did like the callback to Pretty Ricky Conlon, his first boxing match in the first one that he lost to. So I like that callback a lot. They bring in Drago, but just eye candy. He doesn't really have much to do. But he's a fat cat now. They moved back to Hollywood. He lives in a big mansion, just like Rocky did in 3. He's lost touch with his people. He's lost touch with really who and what he was. He's relegated to being the babysitter for the daughter, which is fine. But
she's adorable, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
She's the real star of this movie.
Yeah. There's so many shadows of Rocky 3 in this. But like you said, Clubber Lang is a real threat. And yeah, the first fight with him and Dame, they call him Dame. He's dangerous because, again, Creed's lazy. He's like, I'll go out there. We'll give him a shot.
And it's almost like watching, especially the first fight with Felix, because Damien manipulates the situation. He does the Tanya Harding on Drago because the fight was set up between Felix and Drago. And that's what I'm going to call him Apollo. I'm going to do that more than once. Adonis is promoting. So Damien sets it up that he injures Drago. So then he works his way into the fight.
Which that's what he wanted. This is not how this works in real life, but somehow he manipulates his way.
But Adonis is like, to Felix, now that Felix is out of money and out of a fight, I can make this work. We can build this guy as the underdog. And that's what Damien wanted all along. So therein lies the angle that he's been lying to Adonis this whole time to make him the bad guy, but he never quite gets there, in my mind anyway. I wasn't like rooting for him like I was rooting for Rocky against Mr. T to beat this guy, because you feel bad for him. Okay, yeah, he lied to him, but I can see why. And then going back to the backstory of them as kids, I think it was a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't have that emotional investment that you had in some of the Rocky films.
I will say my theater was jam-packed. I had half of Camp Smith, the Army base, was there, and it was dead quiet the entire movie, even during the fight sequences. Nobody, you watch like Rocky 3, and again, you got Apollo on the side, and he's weaving, he's watching these guys fight, and you find yourself when you're watching these movies doing the same thing because you're invested. And I didn't none of that for this movie.
This is where I feel there's a Rocky-shaped hole. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because when Rocky is standing in Adonis's corner, he's emotionally invested in the fight.
You have that history.
You're part of you. And that's where the Rocky films do this really well. You're not thinking, I'm standing in the ring with Rocky. You're standing on the sidelines with Adrian watching her go, get up, right? Yeah. Like you're that person and she's channeling you as the audience on the screen. And that's what you don't have here, because I feel even though they've tried to make this connection back again to the old films with Little Duke, right? The character played by Tony Burton in the original Rocky films, who was Apollo's trainer, and his son is now the trainer at the Delphi Gym. You don't feel the same connection to Little Duke that you do the original Duke or Mickey or Rocky as Creed's trainer. You just don't have that same feeling. You know, part of getting invested in the fight is feeling as an observer, like you're going, get up, right? Yeah. Like hit him harder. Don't let him hit you. You're going, put your hands up, block your face, right? You're getting invested as a viewer. And that's what this doesn't have, because there's no surrogate for you in the film, really.
Yeah. You know what else is missing too? And it's weird, but putting us back in LA, you're removing the Philadelphia element, which is almost its own character, especially, you know, in the Rocky movies, but even in the first and second Creed, where he goes to Rocky's statue and he realizes the legacy that he has to, the shadow that he lives under and that he has to rise to. And that is completely missing. You know, you see him, he's on a billboard. He's a big fat cat now. And, you know, he's made tons of money. It just, there's something completely in.
But again, giving him the benefit of the doubt, the character at this point has risen from the shadow.
Yeah.
So again, thinking of it that way, maybe he's got to be in his own space. If he was in Philadelphia, he would always be. This movie would still be under that shadow. There'd be even a bigger hole.
Correct. No, I agree with you. I agree with the choices and why you want to take this character. Rocky has been there for the first two movies. It's now time for me, this character, to kind of take my own step and be my own person. And I get that. I agree with that. I just don't think that me as a viewer, I was emotionally attached. I wasn't connected to his character. I didn't care that he felt guilt about Dame. And that Dame, you know, sometimes people make their own choices and you got to move on and not blame yourself that this, you know, you left this guy behind and now Dame's got a chip on his shoulder because he's like, you stole my life. That's where I should have been. And I want a shot at that. I was more invested in this Jonathan Majors character because he had a drive. He was just more interesting. And when your lead character, you can't get behind, then you lost me.
You see, I really liked the chemistry between the two leads here. Mm-hmm. That whole scene where they're having lunch.
Well, at dinner, yes.
I think is great. Is fascinating. And you're trying to piece together the story that you haven't been told yet, because you only get that little flashback at the beginning where, you know, this is Adonis after Felicia Rashad has picked him up and said that Apollo is his father. So this is him living with her, but he's still being the bad kid and sneaking out. Yes, right?
Yeah.
And they go to this bootleg boxing, this illegal boxing match where Damien is the star, right? And Adonis is in his corner. And then you see this little snippet of a fight outside of a liquor convenience store. And then a little bit later on, you find out that Adonis was getting beaten by these older men and that Damien tried to protect him with this gun. And that's how he was arrested. And then Adonis runs away. So I think understandably, he feels guilt over that. It was his fault, the situation that he put Damien in.
Kind of, but did Damien have to pull a gun?
Well, I mean, maybe he felt that that's the only thing. It was like 4 against 1. He had it.
That's the whole question. The whole question is like, are you responsible for the choices somebody else makes in the moment? Like, is he responsible for Damien pulling a gun?
Damien thinks so.
Unless he got him the gun. Unless he somehow got him the gun.
So, but that's the setup, which you're given in bits and pieces because you don't know the full story. And that's why this scene with them when they're first eating lunch together is so interesting, because you're trying to piece that together through their conversation. And I love the first scene when Damien is leaning against his car and he says to him as he comes out of the gym, "Can I get an autograph?" And he says, "You can get off my car." Until he realizes who he is.
I know I'm jumping ahead a little. I want to talk about Michael B. Jordan as a director. This is his debut. Yeah. I think he's done a really good job here. one thing I read a joint interview with Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors in the New York Times, and Jonathan Majors was talking about how Michael B. Jordan's always watching anime. In Adonis's room, there's a Naruto poster, which my son was like, Naruto, immediately. But he talked about how he used that in this film. And this is one thing that I really liked was during the boxing match, everything goes dark and quiet around them. It's like they're in a space by themselves.
Yeah, the entire audience disappears. It's just the two of them. And it's a great take to think that we've been watching these 6+ Rocky movies and now 3 Creed movies before someone finally took this approach.
And it's because he watches anime, and because he's like, in anime, you always have this conflict between the hero and the villain. And in anime, and I watch a lot of anime, so I can attest to this, in anime, the villain's almost always redeemed. No matter how bad the villain is, they always come back. And because there's this sort of underlying theme of forgiveness. And that's ultimately what this film is about, right? So not only about them forgiving each other, but them forgiving themselves for the choices that they've made. And it's such a great way to shoot this fight because it's something we haven't seen before.
Yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And I like that sensibility, that anime sensibility that he brought.
That's interesting. I didn't pick up on any of the anime stuff, but yeah, I mean, the slow motion hits, the ethereal feel of it all, where again, it's just these two guys with their own thoughts and their own breath, they're just hearing themselves in the moment. Everything else is shut out. And
they look across the ring and they see each other as kids.
Yeah. Now it's a very, very bold choice, and I think it is one of the few things that really works well.
I mean, we could talk again about the parallels because Felicia Rashad's character dies here, Mickey dies in the third movie.
Of course. There's a formula. There's a formula here that I think the filmmakers feel that they have to follow almost to a T. Somebody's got to die. Somebody's got to yell at either Creed or Rocky to what's the matter? Get your head back on straight.
But you're not bringing in Rocky, so why ape the third Rocky movie? Just make it your own now. We just talked about the fact that this character needs to go out, and maybe because I literally watched them back to back. I watched Rocky 3 first, so you can't help but sit in the theater going, "Oh, she's gonna die." There goes Mickey. Oh,
but unless somebody completely rewrites the script, you're kind of limited as to what because your character is aging out. Adonis is getting old. He's nowhere near. He's nowhere near as old as Rocky was. As he was getting up there in years. So he's got a few fights left in him.
He was like retired at 34, and I get it. You can only take so many hits.
That's one thing they kind of talked about here, but they don't really acknowledge. I mean, we'll talk about this with Rocky 3 because there's a major injury from Rocky 2 that just disappears after Rocky 2. But one of the things that you do see in the Rocky films, and certainly by the 5th one, it's really obvious, right? He has brain damage. He has brain damage because he keeps getting hit in the head.
He wasn't that smart to begin with. So,
I have to say, people probably don't notice it, but if you watch the whole series, you do. Stallone's brilliant because he really demonstrates that cumulative damage over the films in the way that Rocky talks, the way, his speech gets slower and slower as the films go on. And they talk in Creed 3 about him having so many concussions. He said, He says, "How many concussions have you had?" But he seems like he's still totally
he's got all his his faculties about it. Right. They go down the laundry list of all of his injuries.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he's bouncing around and he's doing whatever. No, I agree. It's movie magic, right? But now we got this character who's now heavyweight champ again. So if there's a Creed 4, he's right back in the ring.
Well, unless he retires again, and then somebody's got to yell at him, "Get your head on straight, champ! What are you fighting again for?" But I liked how Damien was so insidious throughout. Like he had an idea in mind, and he was going to get.
He had a plan from day one. The minute think about this, the guy's behind bars all these years, and he's got to have access to the world and see what's going on with Adonis. even though he changed his name.
Yeah.
At some point, he's like, "Oh, that's my buddy." So
the character's really smart. And I did, because he had to get the lay of the land once he got in that gym and saw Felix and everything else, then purposely gets Felix mad at him when he starts to spar with him. And then there's that one sparring thing where he hits him in the arm a couple of times to injure him purposely. And so when the idea comes up to fight him, Felix wants to because he doesn't like the guy to begin with. It's like, I'll beat him.
Yeah, I'll beat him. Yeah, I'll take him on.
And he's also, he's calling him grandpa, right? He's like, you're so old.
Yeah. Well, I missed.
But
Rocky.
as soon as you see Drago get attacked at that party, you're like, okay, here we go. You can you see 5 steps ahead of where this movie is going.
Yeah, too bad no one else did.
And the other thing I want to say too that I was a little bit disappointed in is they start in the first 2 films, to really establish Bianca as this independent character, and here she becomes more of like, she sort of becomes less her own person and more of like I'm supporting you in whatever your internal struggle is, even though you won't actually talk to me, which I don't like, and which also is a fault of the Rocky movies to some extent, where Talia Shire's character is more finely drawn in the first 2 films, and she starts to become a little less so as the films go on. But the difference with the Rocky films is that Rocky's relationship with Adrian has always been like this bedrock of who he is. I mean, I would argue the first film is actually a romance. It's not a boxing story.
No, absolutely.
So I really was feeling kind of the lack of Tessa Thompson's energy here a little bit, because
because like you said, in the first 2, she really was a strong character. She was her own, especially in the first one. Like she, the scene where they go out for Philly cheesesteaks, and she's just talking about her aspirations, and we get the groundwork with the hearing loss and all that, and that plays into the daughter. It's sad because you do get the one scene where you see her singing to her own song, but someone else is singing it because she can't carry a note anymore because she can't hear herself. But I've got multiple gold records. You kind of get that thrown at you that, she is successful on her own right, but you don't really see it.
Yeah.
The fact that Damien can relate to that, because he
that was dangerous. That little dive into that world where he's like,
well, how do you feel having somebody else sing your song? He's talking about himself when he's saying that to her.
This guy's living my life. You could have been my wife. We could be. No, there's a lot going on here. Like I said, Jonathan Majors, man, but
I was watching the first fight, especially against Felix, when Damien's fighting Felix. I'm thinking, could he really get away with this if it was a real? But because this is like a wrestling match, if the ref don't see it, it's fine. You can hit somebody with a chair. If the ref's back is turned and you hit somebody with a chair and knock him out, it's fine. The ref didn't see it. There's no replay here in professional wrestling, because he's hitting him on the arm. He hits him in the leg. He brushes his cheek just so he could cut him.
Yeah.
I'm like, would he really get away with that if this was a real fight?
The elbow and the knee?
No.
He would have been disqualified.
The whole idea you can't hit below the belt. My pants are up to my nipples. I'm sorry. Sorry. No, below the belt.
Even though he was fighting dirty, the worst character in this movie is Felix's mom. She is the bad guy in this movie. Throw him back in. He's good.
Yeah, he's good.
Get mama paid, Felix. Come on.
Yeah. How many concussions did you have, Felix? Like mama took a couple hits to the head. Yeah, I wasn't feeling it with this. I feel this was a big letdown from the first 2.
I understand where they want to go with this character and with this story, but it did just feel like something was missing, and that thing that was missing is spelled Rocky.
Oh, Rocky. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't think that Damien was bad enough. Again, I've said it before, so that's what was missing.
Well, like I think what Christina said, you gotta redeem your bad guy at the end, because at the end of the day, he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just a petulant child who, ended up in circumstances, and now he's watching his buddy live his best life.
Yeah,
he's past his prime.
But those moments of those last shots in Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, when Rocky finally starts to make his punches count against Creed and then against Drago in 4, you're like, oh, he's finally chipping away at these monoliths.
Well, that's because when we get into 3, it's called the rope-a-dope, where you actually exhaust your opponent. You let him beat the crap out of you because it tires him out.
But also because
it's also drama.
Rocky always led with his face. So
I know that was, again, we're not talking Rocky 3 yet, but I'm like, do these people never block any punches? It's like
I know. And what's amazing when you film these movies, they're really hitting each other. I mean, there's no way to fake this. There's absolutely no way. And I will say what was amazing to me was they're pummeling each other. Creed is wearing white shorts and there's not a drop of blood on them at all at the end of this fight. Nothing. And you bring your daughter ringside to a boxing match, and don't get me wrong, she's into it. You also see that they're setting her up as a potential, maybe she gets her own franchise at some point, this little girl. But all of a sudden, the fight starts to go south and it's getting a little too much. And I got to get you out of here. It's like, well, maybe you should have thought of that before you brought it to them.
And let me just also point out the most disrespectful sports host I've ever seen. The guy that Adonis sits down with when he's going to make the announcement that he's coming out of retirement. The guy's insulting him right to his face. Oh, wait a second. We got a call. Somebody else is going to insult you now.
That's called ratings. That's called ratings.
I know. He's like, some people say that you fought Conlon after his prime. Yeah. And some people say that you haven't had very many difficult opponents, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. How do you, right.
At the end of the interview, we hope you come back, champ. Oh, I'll be back. Don't worry. Yeah. I had a great time.
I'll be waiting for you at your car. Yeah. Oh, well.
You always have to have the montage scene, right? The training montage.
Sure.
And there's always got to be some, out of the ordinary thing that they're doing. Like Rocky was splitting wood in Russia in Rocky 4.
Yeah, sure. That was actually realistic. This is Mr. Incredible dragging the train.
Yeah, he's dragging a plane like on the runway.
What else can I drag that's going to give me muscles? I got a plane. Okay.
They did have the parallel as well when he runs up to the top of the Hollywood sign. I'm like, that's the top of the steps there,
Yeah.
Right. And a callback to the first movie when he's nicknamed Hollywood.
Yeah. I think Dame actually calls him Baby Creed at one point too, which I thought was a nice little callback.
And that's what set him off. He's like, okay, I was okay with the gun and everything else, but you call me Baby Creed. I'm coming out of retirement now.
Yeah.
I think the thing about Adonis,
that's a hell of a thing to live up to, by the way.
Everyone calls him Donnie. Right?
I know.
We probably should call him that. But I think that the thing about Adonis is that I feel in some ways he doesn't really learn from what he's experienced. Like this guy who has everything by this movie, right? Mm-hmm. But he's still got his chin up. He's just as pugnacious in this as he was in the first movie, in a lot of ways,
which is weird because he kind of lost that in the second one, but now he suddenly has this internal turmoil going on yet again.
He's always resistant to people who are trying to teach him and help him,
including his wife. She's like, what? We've built this world together. It's,
And this is one of the things that Stallone, one of the things that I read, where he was having differences with the way that the story was going in terms of this movie. And one of the things that I read is that he didn't like the character being in such a dark place. And I think maybe this is the type of thing that he was getting at with that statement.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that seems to be part of it. And you mentioned before with the Winkler. So there's other stuff going on. He doesn't even own the rights to this character.
That's the whole thing.
It's
about the really, he said flat out, because I read an interview with him and he talked about how he'd be happy to work with Michael B. Jordan again. He wishes him all the luck in the world, but he has this conflict with Irwin Winkler, who bought the rights to Rocky in 1974 when he was like a broke actor who had like $100 to his name. He was a kid who signed something away, who had no idea what he was signing away. And, I don't know what recourse he has at this point, but he is upset because Winkler's going on to create some kind of series with Drago.
Yeah.
And he didn't consult Stallone. And Stallone's like, I created those characters, you know.
Thanks for your service there, Sly. We got it from here. Yeah. And all the money.
I mean, that's the whole thing. He wrote all 6 of the Rocky films. He directed 4 of them. He co-wrote Creed 2. He was a producer on the first 2 Creed movies.
Well, he does get a credit here at the end.
I don't know that he was actively involved.
Right, but that's why I thought that was weird. It was like a little concession they threw him at the end because, from what I understand, he was not involved in this at all. And yet his name shows up in the end credits. You
know, so it's like, this is a guy, I mean, this is literally his franchise. It's his franchise.
It's amazing, which is amazing because I think he gets, you take all those guys from the 80s, you take the Schwarzeneggers and you take the Stallones. And I think Stallone always kind of gets a little bit of a shaft that because I think people perceive him as that character. And that's not really who he is, but because he embodies that so well that people think that that is who and what he is. But no, I mean,
and I think that, you know, we'll talk about this in Rocky 3 for sure, you know, because we'll talk more about Stallone. But I think that Stallone's mistake, I think he could have been a De Niro. I'm not saying that lightly. I think he's a great actor. I think he chose to play like these kinds of meathead roles all through the 80s.
Well, I mean, you know, so take Rambo, which, you know, you get something like that thrown at you. The first one is completely different than what Rambo becomes.
Yes, First Blood is not.
Yes, correct. And then he becomes those 80s over the top characters that are just, you know, they're cartoons.
Right.
Is what it comes down to. But that first one was fantastic. And maybe if he had better choices or he had made better decisions, I mean, at the end of the day, he probably took whatever came along. Don't shoot, or my what? Look at my mom.
Stop, or my mom will shoot.
Well, by that time he was kind of pigeonholed into what audiences thought they should expect from him, you know?
I mean, maybe he's getting a little bit of a return now on this TV series he's got going. I can't even think of the name of it now. Tulsa
King.
Tulsa King.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you though, how many belts does this guy have now? Creed, he needed attendance just to carry all the championship belts.
Yeah. That's it.
How many belts are there out there that need to be unified? You know,
I was laughing about that when we were watching Rocky Balboa, which is, you know, the official final movie of the Rocky series.
Because they ran out of names.
And
they ran out of belts. That's what they ran out of.
But Rocky's opponent in that film, Dixon, has like 15 sycophants who walk behind him carrying all of these belts.
I want to be a belt carrier.
Oh, talk about sycophants. I love the skeleton guy for Felix. I'm like, he should be the referee, that guy.
Yeah, he was cool, right?
When he came out with the whole, like, he had the whole Day of the Dead theme.
Yeah, keep that guy in the ring. Keep that guy in the ring, man. Keep it interesting. But Creed 3, doing extremely well at the box office, set a record. It's expected to do much better than they thought it would. Right now, they're looking at 58 million domestically this weekend.
Wow. I will say, like I said before, my theater was jam-packed. Of course, it was a Friday night at 8:00, so it was prime. But my entire theater was jammed. There were people everywhere, and I have not seen a movie theater like that in quite some time. And maybe it's because I do go to like some of the lesser, you know, the first showings on a Saturday or, you know, 7:00 on a Thursday. But that was prime time. And boy, people were there. So I'm very happy. Kudos.
Yeah, my theater was first showing on Friday at 11:30 a.m. And there was probably about 10 other people, but that's par for the course, something that early. And that's what I prefer, of course.
There you go.
Same. Yeah. We went to 10 a.m. on Saturday, so not that many people in the theater at that time, which is better for me.
Yeah, I mean, being a packed audience like that, I was hoping for a little more audience participation, especially when you get into the final fight, and it just wasn't there. There was nobody. You know, my buddy who went with me, he was checking his phone halfway through the movie. I'm like, all right, first of all, turn it off, or I'm gonna pop you in the nose. Yeah, I just felt, you know what? I'm giving it 3. Creed 3 gets 3 for me, unfortunately.
We're going right to knockout rounds here.
Yeah.
3 KOs.
I wish it was more. I really enjoyed the first 2. watching Rocky 3 made me remember how much I do like these characters, because as a kid growing up, it was an event to go to someone's house when HBO would always have the boxing matches. And my family it was probably the one sport that my family really was into. I never got behind it and I never cared, but it was an event. And so, I watched all these movies as they came out. This one didn't do it for me. I didn't care for Adonis at all. I didn't care for his storyline. I was more invested in Jonathan Majors.
See, I enjoyed the characters enough, both Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan, that I loved it when they were on screen together, because I think that's where the strength of this movie lies, is chemistry between these two characters. But I agree, it didn't have the oomph that the original Rocky movies had, that I remember fondly watching in the theater, and the audience is just getting so much into it. And we'll talk about that with Rocky 3. But yeah, that was missing there, and it was missing for me. I wasn't as invested in the final fight. I don't think it's a bad movie. I really like the Creed series, and this did well enough. And Jordan's already saying that there's definitely going to be another one, a fourth Creed movie. I'm going to give it 3.5 buckets.
And I'm going to go between you guys. I'm going to say 3.25. Like I said, it's good. I think Michael B. Jordan has great potential.
Yeah,
as a director. I think this is really, he does a really good job.
Very serviceable.
Love to see him and Jonathan Majors do something else together. So it's not my favorite of the Creed series, but the longer a series goes on, you start to have these ups and downs. And I think the best you can hope for in some ways, consistency. So yeah. And I just want to say again, because I have to say it every time, if you like Jonathan Majors and you've been watching all these Jonathan Majors movies, go watch The Harder They Fall on Netflix. Let me bring in my weekly PSA, because more people need to watch that movie, and he is freaking great in it.
No argument there.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. Are you bringing us to the concession stand this week?
Yes, I'm bringing you to the concession stand, and I had a plan, and this movie destroyed it. Because I chose my concession strictly based on the fact that it was founded in Philadelphia. I'm like, we're going to have a whole Philly themed movie. So no, we went to Hollywood. Yeah. So anyways, I will preface this. We are going to be talking Double Bubble Bubble Gum. Say that 5 times fast. Double D-U-B-B-L-E, not D-O-U. I'm going to preface this entire discussion by stating I do not like bubblegum. I don't chew bubblegum, nor do I endorse chewing bubblegum in a movie theater.
Okay.
But, again, I chose this treat based entirely on the fact that it was discovered in Philadelphia and thought it would be a fun feature. So here we go. World's first commercially sold bubblegum was invented in 1928. This is bubblegum. Chewing gum's been around for centuries.
Now, this is not double bubble gum. This is in general, right?
Well, no, I'm talking double bubble. Yes.
Okay.
Double bubble was the first commercially sold bubble gum designed to blow bubbles.
Wow. That is impressive.
1928 by the Fleer Chewing Gum Company. So chewing gum has existed, but this was a special gum that they've been working on, and I guess the formula wouldn't allow it until this, the founder, Frank Fleer, he attempted to create a chewing gum in 1906 called Blibber Blubber. So they're having a lot of fun with the names first and foremost, because I want to go to the newsstand and ask for some Blibber Blubber.
Were any of these gums sentient?
I don't know. Did you just chew the life out of them?
But Fleer, I think of them as making sports cards.
Well, this is interesting because we are going to get into some Tops chewing gum. So Blibber Blubber, it was a chewing gum, but it wasn't really a bubble gum. And
that sounds like something Mr. T would say.
Blibber Blubber.
Enough of this blibber blubber.
I pity the gum. So it was discovered by accident. It was actually Walter Deemer, who was an accountant for Fleer, was experimenting on his spare time, and he came up with this recipe. It was less sticky, so you could get the bubbles, because the problem was that when you try to blow a bubble, they would stick together. So it was this weird consistency. But anyways, he came on this formula, and the only reason that bubble gum is pink is because that is the only food color that they had in the factory. That's the only reason why bubble gum is pink.
Okay.
So that's your fun fact. But this looked promising, so they did like a test market. They did like 100 pieces, sent it out to local stores in Philadelphia, sold out in the first day. So they began marketing this as Double Bubble and surpassed 1.5 million in the first year. So this was a hit right out of the gate. This was a novelty, and they actually started employing blowing teachers that would send people out onto the street to teach the guy behind the counter how to blow a bubble. So when kids walked in, he'd be blowing a bubble. Kids are like, whoa, you just blew my mind. I want one of those. So
I remember teaching my son how to blow a bubble.
Viral marketing at its best in like the 1920s. Just a guy walking down the street blowing bubbles, just minding my own business. What's that, son? You want to blow a bubble? Why? Come over here.
So how were these sold? Were they in sticks at this point? Were they in the little barrel shapes that we know?
They were wrapped in just little wads of gum. But 1930, they started introducing the comic strips inside. So we all think Bazooka Joe, which was Tops, these guys were the first to actually put little news funnies. They had Fleer funnies, and they had these characters, Dub and Bub, and then later they were replaced by Pud and his pals in 1950, which we won't go there. But unfortunately, during World War II, sugar and latex became scarce, so they actually halted production from 1942 and did not resume until 1951. Right out of the gate, this stuff has been popular. In 1998, Concord Confections purchased Fleer, and then they started expanding 60 countries. In 2004, Tootsie Roll acquired Concord. So Tootsie Roll technically owns Double Bubble now. I don't think I knew that Tootsie Roll was a company.
Do you think they were like a subsidiary?
Just a candy, owned by somebody, probably owned by Hershey or whatever.
By Ferraro.
Yeah, Ferraro. But as a side note, in 1938 is when Tops Chewing Gum Company started manufacturing Bazooka bubble gum. So they weren't the first, but they jumped on the bandwagon. They also had the Bazooka Joe comic strips that were on the inside of the wrapper. So they did that, but it was the 1950s. They started replacing it with a baseball card, and then realized that the baseball card, kids were more apt to want the card, not the gum. So then they just changed their focus and became a trading card company that just happened to have gum in it. I have sealed packs of Star Wars trading cards from 1977 that still have the gum in it. I do not recommend eating it because it is gross. Just telling you that. But I also want to share this. Guinness Book of World Records, the largest bubblegum bubble ever blown was by a gentleman in Alabama in 2004. Chad Fell. How big do you think this bubble was? If you had to take a guess, the world's record bubble.
Like what is it? Like diameter or something?
Diameter. Have you just
like so many inches across type of thing?
Yeah.
15 inches.
I'm gonna say 25 inches.
Right in between. 20. And it took him 3 pieces of double bubble. So is that cheating because he used multiple?
Yes, it is.
I think so. I agree with you. Yes.
I mean, I don't see how you could get it above a certain size without like the correct volume of gum.
Right, because you gotta have the
material of gum. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make a confession that Double Bubble, as far as I know, I've never seen it available for sale on its own. It's always like in the Halloween pack of candy, and it's always the rock hard last final alternative. If you have nothing else in that bag,
fine, I'll eat the double bubble.
You are looking for a sugar fix. It'll take maybe 15 minutes to actually chew the thing into a gum kind of a consistency. And yeah, I never go for the double bubble. And is it available by itself, or can you only get it in these multi-packs with other candy?
You can buy it by itself. In fact, I bought like a jar of Double Bubble.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm
a gum chewer.
Oh,
like,
you are.
I don't
My
think
wife
you
is
guys
too, but
are.
like strictly Trident. So she's got her own brand.
In fact, last week I was chewing juicy fruit bubble gum, and I was blowing a bubble and trying to open my phone at the same time. And let me tell you that the Face ID will not recognize you if you have a bubble in front of you.
No, it won't. Jim, I will share a story. I didn't even put this in my notes, but it just dawned on me. So in college, we had one of the first Costco's that opened up across the street. And one of my buddies had a membership probably through his parents or whatever. And he comes back and it is a bucket of individually wrapped double bubble gum. And there probably was 100, as college students do because we're bored. Let's have a contest to see who can shove the most pieces of gum in their mouth. And these two gentlemen, I don't remember what the piece count was, but the jaws weren't shut and the gum was.
I know. Did they break their jaws?
It was a massive mess.
You can't chew one of those. I can't imagine having 5 of them in your mouth.
No, I think we were talking like 20 pieces, 20 plus pieces. So double bubble. Like I said, I'm not a gum chewer, and I just chose it because of the Philadelphia connection, and Creed ruined it. So that's why Creed also lost a point in my bucket. Because they didn't play along.
It spoiled your plan.
They didn't play along.
I just hope that the listeners out there do not choose bubblegum in general as their movie-going snack, because you're going to annoy...
I don't endorse this in the movie theater.
You're going to annoy your fellow moviegoers if you're snapping and popping.
Someone with a Mike and Ike's. All right, so there we go. Concession stand is over.
All right.
Maybe we can find a double bubble ad or something.
All right, let's go back to the theater and let's get to what we have wanted to talk about for the last 45 minutes or so.
We touched on it. Like I said, I think we should have just talked this first because it makes more sense.
Hey, we got something to look forward to. And here we are, Rocky 3. I always, because it's Rocky 3, I always mistakenly think it was a 1983 release, but it's not. 1982 release.
I don't think it wasn't until 4 that I actually saw them in theater.
So this was released in May of 82. So how old were we all at that point in time?
Right now,
I was 8.
I was probably 15,
and I was
14. 13.
I was 11 in May of 1982, and I did see this in the theater. Jeff, you said this wasn't your first, but this was my first in the theater, and I must have seen this 3 times in the theater.
Actually, wait, I'm sorry, I lied. I would have still been 7 in May because my birthday's not until August. Right. I was too little to go to the theater. I would have had to
babysit you.
But I liked this movie so much. I had a Rocky poster in my room.
Did you?
After seeing this, yes.
But not Clubber Lang?
Not Clubber Lang. I don't think you could get a Clubber Lang poster. You probably could now. You can get anything now. But
yeah, sure.
But no, I had, and it was one of those posters where going to the local county fair, the game where you could throw the dart at the poster you wanted.
Oh, yeah.
I was going right for that Rocky, and that's what I had.
So they gave you the poster with the dart holes in it? No.
No. They gave me a new one. It was on the back of my bedroom door for the longest time. Yeah.
Okay. Rocky.
But and let me tell you, Stallone has like no body fat in this movie. Like he is so noticeably in literally the best shape of his life in this film, especially compared to the first 2 films. And I read that he did get himself down to 2.6% body fat. Like you can see every muscle on his body, and all he ate was egg whites and toast.
Uncooked egg whites, by the way.
But first of all, the United Artists logo.
Yes.
I miss that so much because a lot of movies that fell under United Artists then, an older movie that you see now, they often will replace that logo with something more contemporary. But not the case here. I watched this on Prime, and it had that thin UA logo that comes and turns. It had that old, I love that. The theme behind it. So that in itself was just a nostalgia trip. And then the opening with Eye of the Tiger, that was a big part of why I love this movie so much. I love that song. I had the album.
That song was everywhere.
It was. It was a huge hit. It was a huge hit. And then later on, being a wrestling fan, Hulk Hogan took it when he came out to the ring. That's what played.
I don't know if you should have done that.
Oh, I ate it up. I loved it.
Yeah, we'll get into the WWF.
But the movie opens with, this is a little bit of the dark side of Rocky. You find out a little bit later on. It opens with a montage of him defending the belt that he won at the end of Rocky 2. And you also get the end of Rocky 2 at the beginning of Rocky 3. Yeah. Just in case you forgot.
Yeah. Well, one of these montages show that they're boxing at Radio City Music Hall. How does that work?
You're right. Are they on stage? They're on
stage. Am I sitting in a seat or in a balcony? That was a weird one.
Also, the montage of quote unquote Rocky in the media. A lot of it was Stallone in the media, on the Muppet Show or at the Oscars.
This was genius. Yeah. Just take existing footage of him as an actor and say, oh no, that was him as Rocky.
But they really sell this song because it plays multiple times. And in this beginning montage, they play the whole song through over this montage. So it's a while before you get any new dialogue, from anyone.
Which is weird because a lot of times when you had a hit song it was always in the end credits. Like you watch Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, you had to wait until the end credits to hear the Tina Turner song.
Yeah, like Footloose, the hit song is in the middle of the movie.
Footloose, the entire it was a musical. The whole thing was soundtrack.
This is a case of where the movie made this a hit song because nobody knew this song before the movie came out. And as a matter of fact, the song you're hearing is not the hit version. It's the demo version.
The demo, yeah. That was interesting. But, to the untrained ear, But I liked all this, he's pitching American Express and DeLorean and all this other stuff.
As you're getting the montage of these title defenses, every once in a while, you'll see Clubber Lang in the audience, disgustedly leaving during everybody else's jubilation.
He's paying for a ticket to go to every one of these events. So he's really lining Rocky's pocket at the end of the day. He's not harming him. He's actually helping him right now.
Rocky has become who Apollo Creed is in the first movie. He's become complacent.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. This is where the parallels of Creed 3, where you see he's now, like I refer to him as a fat cat. He's very popular. He's very wealthy. They live in a gorgeous house. And Stallone even said he was dealing with that in his own personal life a bit, being top celebrity. So it was echoing. It was a little meta before its time, but yeah.
And I found it.
All he wants none of it.
Yeah, Paulie is who the movie focuses on up front here. Yeah, he's like everything. What have you done for Paulie? What have you done for me lately? It's
lousy stinking X-Lax watch. He smashes that pinball machine. I'm like that.
Oh, the pinball machine scene.
Did you see the Flash Gordon one?
Did you see the alien one that he's standing right next to? Oh, no, I love that. I love that. That was a real pinball machine. The alien one.
Well, this came out in 82. Flash Gordon came out. 82.
No, Flash Gordon was 80.
80. All right. That makes sense then.
The thing is, Paulie is a character who never really changes because he's from the first film. He's always sort of corrosively jealous of Rocky. Even when Rocky is the guy who breaks people's thumbs on the docks, Paulie is jealous because he works in a meat packing factory and Rocky does this thing that he thinks is glamorous and cool.
Just a jealous, lazy bum.
When Paulie finally, Rocky comes to get him out of jail and they have that conversation, Rocky says, "You act like the world owes you a living." And I immediately think of the old Goofy song when he used to sing that to himself. The world owes me a living. And that's in the very... Goofy was the first Kramer before Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So the thing I want to talk about, though, real quick before we go forward, is in Rocky 2, at the end of Rocky 1, Rocky, because he leads with his faith, has been beaten so badly by Apollo, he's essentially blind in his right eye. And because of that, Mickey doesn't want him to do the rematch with Apollo. There's several scenes where he's driving and he hits trash cans on the curb because he can't see the curb on the right side. They totally forget about that in this movie.
Maybe he got a new eye. Maybe with all that money, he got himself some new peepers.
Usually they're, throughout the series, they're pretty consistent. Like I said, talking about his injuries, like I said, they do show the cumulative brain damage this character takes as the series goes on. But that's one thing they just decided to let go of that.
Yeah.
Mickey tells him that he basically matched him up with fighters who he thought Rocky could beat.
Right.
That he couldn't beat someone like Clubber Lang.
He's going to kill you, Rock.
He's like a monster when he gets in that ring. Rocky's like literally 40 pounds lighter than him. And you're going to have this guy hitting you in the face.
That's why they have weights. That's right. you can't just fight some guy that's 100 pounds more than you. Although I was blown away. I had no clue. The Hulk Hogan is 7 foot tall. Almost.
He's 6'7". I think I looked it up.
No clue.
Yeah. They accentuated it.
Well, I don't think Stallone is really all that tall, but still, he's not Tom Cruise short. But damn,
this is why one of the reasons I love the movie so much is this whole Thunderlip sequence, and this is before Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan. He is a wrestler at this point, but he's not like the megastar that the WWF made him. As a matter of fact, when the WWF was called the WWWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, Hogan was in there in 1980-81. He got fired for doing this movie by Vince McMahon Sr. because he missed matches or whatever. But, obviously, Sr. couldn't foresee that this may be good for the industry, right. Which is what his son picked up upon a few years later. But yeah, this whole sequence, the Thunderlip sequence, is just hilarious, especially the banter between Mickey and Paulie and Rocky as they're watching him come through. It's like, nobody does this much for charity. Bob Hope would. That's right. He would.
Actually, one of my favorite lines is when Mickey says, "You ever fight a dinosaur, kid? They can cause a variety of damage."
You ever fight a dinosaur, kid?
I do like it when they were at the statue dedication. Mickey's in his hat and his overcoat, and I'm like, he's cosplaying as Kermit the Frog roving reporter here. What's going on? He even had the same tie on.
But Mickey gets so upset during the Thunderlips thing, which is really just an exhibition. It's not like
but he's like throwing him around like
but
Rocky's
still,
like, a couple punches, we'll go out, we'll have some fun.
But just like professional wrestling, if you see some of these moves like a suplex would kill anybody, they know how to do it. So Rocky is not actually getting his back broken when he's getting slammed. And he's throwing him into people when he throws him out of the ring rather than on the concrete floor. But still, Mickey is worked up enough to get upset. So you see foreshadowing there of that he's got heart issues. Getting back to the Thunderlips thing, at the end of it, it was nice when Stallone throws him out. The story is that Stallone couldn't actually deadlift Hogan. So just like in wrestling, Hogan had to jump a little so he could get him up. But then at the end of it, he's like, good match. It's like, why'd you go so crazy on me out there? He's like, that's the name of the game. And then he takes the Polaroid that he asked for at the end. Yeah,
take a picture. Poor Rocky.
There was it wasn't a charity match, but it was an exhibition bout between a boxer by the name of Chuck Wepner and Andre the Giant. And Andre destroyed him.
Andre the Giant's a monster. I thought Hulk Hogan was tall.
Yeah, at the time when Hogan filmed this, that was the big feud, was Andre versus Hogan. When Hogan was a bad guy and Andre was the good guy. We fast forward after that charity match to the statue dedication, as Jeff just mentioned. The famous and controversial Rocky statue.
Yeah, I didn't realize this was made specifically for the movie, and then he wanted to donate it to the Museum of Art. Philadelphia Museum of Art, and they didn't want it.
It stayed there. It actually stayed there on the steps for a long time, and now it's like in Creed 3 or Creed rather. You see it's moved
at the foot
to outside because people still want to pose with the statue.
Sure, I'm going to Philadelphia. That's one of my highlights. That's like coming to New York and not wanting to go see the Ghostbusters.
Right. Yeah, that's a complete tourist opportunity there. But the museum was like, that's not art. That's a movie prop.
Right. Yeah. Well, guess what? It's art. I don't care. Somebody made it.
So they moved it to the front of the Philadelphia Spectrum for a while, for many years. They moved it back for Rocky IV or whatever filming, where it's supposed to be there in the fictional Rocky. And now it's at the bottom of the stairs in a park. So it's adjacent to the steps at this point in time.
So
did you notice in this dedication scene that the drummer has Mr. T on his drum?
I didn't see it at the time, but I did read that Mr. T signed that.
You can actually see it because, things are high def now, right? I never noticed it before, but I have a new and improved television.
Yeah.
And I saw, I was like, hey, Mr. T's name's on there.
Who even knew who Mr. T was at the time?
He must have gotten the autograph. before the
like,
shot.
Well, he probably was like, "This guy's gonna be big. He's
look at that mohawk.
Rocky's
Look at those
opponent."
feathers. Yeah, because up to this point, he was a bouncer, and he was a bodyguard for some of the other famous boxers.
Well, that's how we got famous, right? He was on this TV competition, The World's Toughest Bouncer or whatever. Yeah, and that's how they found him.
Yeah, that's Stallone found him that way.
But let me ask you, for this, before we leave this dedication ceremony, is Gonna Fly Now Rocky's theme in the movies? So
yeah, they're playing it. Yeah,
when he goes into a room,
again,
they play the song in the movies.
Oh no! I want my own theme song. Get one. How do I get one?
But he announces his retirement at this statue dedication,
and everyone's shocked. Like, you don't talk this out with your.
This would have been a prime, opportunity to talk about that injury that he had in Rocky 2, but
right.
It's just like generally kind of clouded over, like he's taken too much punishment and he feels it's time to step down. And here we have Clubber, just like he's attending all these fights. He's attending the statue dedication as well. And he puts out the challenge. And he also tells Adrian that she should have a real man. And this is where Mr. T's mom wasn't too happy with him.
She got mad at him at the premiere.
It's like, I don't raise my son. She doesn't raise any fools that says stuff like that to women. So
you do realize, Mom, that was a role, right? No, you're not. No, that was
he was that good in the role. He was that good.
Let me write you a song, Mom. How to treat you right. Maybe
that's also what these films need in contemporary times, is a Mickey, like barking at Adonis. This guy's a wrecking machine. He's hungry. You ain't been hungry since you won the belt, kid.
That's pretty good. Burgess Meredith right there.
How long were you practicing before you?
No, I don't have to practice. This just rolls off my tongue.
Jim talks like that at home all the time.
I couldn't do a Stallone, though. I did try a Stallone. I couldn't do it. Here's the other thing, is the other admission from Mickey is that all of Rocky's title defenses were handpicked by Mickey, because Mr. T, or Clubber, says, "You've been fighting bums." And he's like, well, he's got a point there, because I've been handpicking them. And then Rocky thinks, were these fixed, these fights? It's like, no, don't, they weren't fixed, but they were easy. So at this statue dedication, Rocky accepts the challenge from Clubber.
Oh, I'm not going to retire.
I'm not going to retire. I'm going to put this guy in his place. And then you get the lavish public training that Rocky has, where you see, Paulie selling T-shirts at this thing, this open gym where the media's at, and girls are kissing him, and taking
selfies with them too.
There's less training going on than there is interviews at these training sessions. He's
not taking this seriously.
No.
Rocky,
you got civilized.
They use this Leroy Neiman, the artist, the painter, that famous painting that's sitting behind Rocky at one point, that monster painting with like the abstract colors. And it's his painting at the end of the movie as well, with him and Apollo.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, Leroy Neiman's very famous artist. He's actually the announcer with the wacky mustache that goes halfway across his face.
That goes to his sideburns, that connects with the sideburns?
Yeah, that was the artist. Yeah. And he showed up in a couple of these Rocky movies, apparently. But
does his brushes have
correct.
hairs
like
from his mustache?
Dali,
okay.
Yeah. He just paints with his face like a walrus. The banner, the heavyweight champ of the world. And I'm like, that just looks like the banner from Jurassic Park. You go back to the dinosaur reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole scene is just ridiculous. It's showing him, he's half-assing it, he's goofing around or whatever. And then it cuts the Clubber laying, and he's all serious. He's ready to take this guy down.
As many memorable lines as Mickey has, probably my favorite is during this sequence
when he says, "My heart.
Let's get out of this house of ill reputes." And then fast forward, fight number 1. So Apollo is a commentator now. Yeah. So, he's got the suit on and he's ringside, and he goes in the ring to greet both opponents before the fight. If Clubber Lang was respectful and polite to Apollo, there would have been no fight number 2. Let me just put it that way, because he pisses Apollo off. So he goes over to Rock. He's like, "Beat this chump." And from that point on, Apollo has a chip on his shoulder about Clubber, and he feels he's got to train Rocky to beat this guy because he was insulted at the beginning of fight number 1.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, it's pretty clear that Apollo actually wants to fight Clubber.
Yes. Yeah. I would have loved to have seen that fight. Bring Apollo out of retirement. He's too busy making illegitimate
Drago versus Clubber. I'll see that too.
Yeah. See, this is where, you're watching Creed 3 and you're like, please tell me Jonathan Majors is somehow Clubber Lang's son.
Clubber Lang is from Chicago, like Mr. T.
Not Mr. T. Lawrence Turod is his real name, by the way.
He lives in a suburb of Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Lives in Lake Forest.
Before the introduction in the ring, we get the altercation backstage before fight number 1. And this is where Mickey gets shoved and he doesn't survive fight number 1 backstage.
He takes a shove.
I mean, I'm not really sure
to put this guy down.
How Rocky could have won this fight, even if he was well trained, but there was no way he was going to win it with Mickey, like basically dying in the locker room. Right. Yeah. There was just.
Yeah. And then Rocky just incoherent ramblings there.
But this is where I wrote down the note. Do these guys not block punches at all? Because they're just gloves down, just take both of them, just taking it.
Yeah, hammer. But this is what I mentioned before, where Apollo's on the sideline, and you can see him. He's like boxing and weaving when you're watching this, and I'm like, all right, he wants egg.
But Rock goes down early, round 2. He's out. He's down and out. So Clubber beats him decisively in this first fight.
That's it. Now he's champ.
And then Rocky goes back to the locker room again. Mickey's still there, and the doctor's like, he's bad. We got to take him to the hospital. They waiting to ask Rocky to take this guy to the hospital?
Hold on,
call the ambulance. So then there's a morning montage. Before the training montage, there's a bit of a morning montage here. And then it ends with, the famous scene where Rocky's got his motorcycle on the top of the steps and he throws his helmet at the statue and bounces a bong. It's like Thor's hammer hitting that statue. So then he goes to the old gym to try to find himself. And who does he find there but Apollo?
He's waiting. He's hiding.
Yep. Yeah. And so this is where you see the correlations now between Apollo and Adonis. Yeah. At where Adonis is at in Creed 3. Yeah.
Except you don't have a racist a-hole like Paulie going, I don't like these people, Rock. It's like, dude,
dial that down a little bit,
Right. I don't like these people. I was like, what the
And then Rocky says, maybe they don't like you.
Yeah, I don't like you either, Paulie. I wish you had died and not Mickey.
Maybe they don't like you. You see how bad that was?
Yeah, that was bad. Adrian, this is what you were saying before. Now Adrian is just following him around and watching him. It's like, what is this? Bring your wife to work day? Like, she's just sitting there doing nothing.
And that's what I mean, where it starts to happen too with Bianca and Creed 3, where like in the first 2 films, Bianca's really her own character. And in the first 2 Rocky films, Adrian's really her own character. And now she's just
they can't find anything for her to do. I mean, at least Bianca, you're told that she's successful and you get a little bit of taste. You don't know what's going on in Adrian's world, except for the fact they have a son.
I think part of it, too, is runtime, because this is notably a lot shorter than the first 2 Rocky films, which are both right around 2 hours. And this is, hour 35? Something like that.
Yeah, it just gets to the conflict. And that's really what this is the fight. That's all it is.
But these are the fun times where you get this workout montage and you see, the difference between Rocky and he's just kind of bumbling doofus and they're trying to teach him the footwork or whatever. And you get the nice little beach scene. And I'm like, what is Apollo wearing? He's got like the short shorts and the half shirt. And I'm like, is this like from the Richard Simmons collection? Like, what is going on here? But it was fun. This is where it gets fun, where he's got a.
And now as if they weren't promoting the song enough, Apollo tells him he needs the eye of the tiger. So it's now a plot point in the movie.
Yeah.
But again, I think that as this training goes on, and I was talking about how this is not present in Creed 3, is Apollo's really a stand-in for you, the viewer, right? He's saying, what's the matter with you? Why aren't you training as hard as you can? This guy wants to kill you, and you've committed to doing this rematch. So why don't you get your head in the game? And as the viewer, you're empathizing with Apollo, right? Because you're feeling the same frustration.
Yeah.
And that's how these films draw you in, because there's someone always who you're feeling, that someone who's standing in for the audience, who's feeling what you're feeling and saying what you're saying on the screen.
And of course, it's no surprise that this is Carl Weathers' favorite Rocky movie.
Yeah, because he's got the most to do in this.
Yeah.
But like you were saying before, Christina, which is, he's got this, something's going on with Rocky, and it's not resolved with him and Apollo. It's, he finally has the confrontation with Adrian, and he just says, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, it was always about me. And now I've got a family. I got, you can't walk into the ring afraid. Like I said, this is probably the least watched out of all the Rocky movies. But after watching this, I'm like, this may be my favorite now.
Oh, definitely. It's always been mine. Yeah.
So.
And of course, you can't not talk about the frolic on the beach scene to Gonna Fly Now.
I like 1, 2, and believe it or not, 6 before I'd say I like this one.
Well, again, it's been a while. I would have to sit down and literally go through them all again.
I can't think about this without thinking about the A-Team and how much I love that.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Nope.
Well, it was funny too. My husband said
fan,
something about this. He was like, it's so funny almost to see Mr. T in this role where he's like so aggressive, and he's clearly the villain, especially when he became almost cuddly by the end of the 80s, right? He was such a very beloved celebrity.
Yeah, sure. Listen, he had his own cartoon. He had his own cereal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He became a brand, and unfortunately, he does have the acting chops. He probably could have done something a little more serious. It just never happened.
The first time he uttered his catchphrase is in this movie.
I pity the fool.
I don't hate Balboa. I pity the fool.
Which I think is his own line. It wasn't in the script, but he never said that on the A-Team itself.
What's your prediction for the fight? Pain.
He's so aggressive. And like I said, when he gets in the ring at the end and they announce the weights, and he's 237 and Rocky's 191. And even the announcer says he looks like a middleweight, right?
Yeah, that's not ever seen.
He says Rocky looks like a middleweight. Why is this guy in the ring with him? You just start thinking, if you lived in the 80s, you start thinking about Tyson in the ring with anybody who always looked like they were half the size of Tyson.
It's amazing, because I actually took a note that this really kind of echoes Mike Tyson's rise. You see that little bit, that hunger that Clubber Lang has. And again, like I said, as a kid growing up, we watched a lot of boxing, so there's always that story narrative of these underdogs, these kids who come up and they just want a shot. But before they go into the ring, Rocky's in the back. And Apollo comes in and he gives him his red, white, and blue shorts. Yeah. He's already got his gloves on. How are you gonna put those shorts on? Who put those shorts
Apollo
on him?
Apollo put them on.
Those shorts on him. That's what
Once the combatants get in the ring for fight number 2, the announcer says, or the commentator says, that this is Rocky's last fight, win, lose, or draw, unless a big ass Russian kills Apollo Creed. Talking about before about seeing this in the theater, this fight, the audience, I remember in the theater, was insane. And especially at the end of the first round, because this is interesting. I never realized that this is the only Rocky movie where you see the whole fight from the beginning of the first round into the end. It kind of flashes forward and all the other, through a number of rounds.
Yeah, you can't sit there. Because they're what, 3 minutes per round?
Right. And because in all the other fights, he goes the full length of the fight.
Yeah,
whereas this, he doesn't.
But I remember vividly the first round obviously goes to Rocky. And Rocky is like taunting Mr. T. And at the end, or Clubber Lang, at the end of it, Clubber Lang is insane. Like, let me at him.
Yeah.
My audience was lost their minds at that during that scene. And that's probably why I love this so much, is probably it was the first movie, even counting Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, where I felt that audience participation. Yeah. And then when Rocky's putting his glove on top of Mr. T's mohawk at one point, you ain't so bad. You ain't so bad.
Yeah, you ain't so bad.
So, yeah, of course, I think, was it in the third round in this one, Clubber Lang goes down?
Yeah, because he knows he's got no endurance, right? He's a big, hard hitter, and he doesn't fight long distance, the whole distance of a fight because he doesn't have that kind of endurance.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about before, the rope-a-dope, which is you take a pummeling because you're wearing your opponent out. It's
right, and because match. Rocky has
he's taking, like you said, he leads with his head, so like the guy can take a hit.
Right.
The guy can take a hit. And
his head is made of stone because he's just like, he's stupid, right? He's just like, I don't care. I'll put my face out there.
It's the only thing I can do. I don't know what else I can do. And the guys on the side, they're like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? He goes, I know what I'm doing. Okay. I read the script. I win. Don't worry.
Even though Apollo teaches him how to actually fight in this, right? Because that was always the whole thing about the first two movies was, Rocky didn't really have any skill. He was just determined.
Yeah.
And he was a hard hitter. And because he was determined and a hard hitter, Mickey didn't try to change who he was. He just tried to work with what he had, right? But Apollo is so clearly the better fighter.
Yes. Yeah.
He's just a more skilled fighter, and he has to actually teach Rocky how to be a fighter here.
And he knows it. That's the thing is at that end when Rocky is fulfilling the favor that
he keeps
has asked him for.
You owe me a favor. He said, what's the favor?
They're walking to the ring, and Rocky says, I thought you said you could live with it. I lied. He said.
Right. And then he says, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter. And that's true.
Yeah.
And even in Creed, he tells Adonis, because he's Apollo's son, Adonis says who won the fight. And he's like, your dad. Like, he's the greatest.
One of the best endings ever, because it's just, boom, they're just ready to go at it.
And you could tell that if they didn't freeze that, obviously they were hitting each other previously. But they're both going to land that punch. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't
How
stop
many
that
times did they have to film that to get that perfect freeze frame,
And then the artist Neiman, he had to turn around and make a painting out of it,
which is in Adrian's.
That's
it's in
true.
the restaurant.
That is, yeah. Well, that go back to Creed when he first walks into Adrian's restaurant. The photo from the Apollo, he goes, "Oh, this was like the 7th round." He goes, "Oh, you're boxing well." He knew that he had done his homework.
I really like what they did in the first Creed because he's so angry at Apollo. Adonis is so angry at Apollo. And, they show him watching the film of the fight and he stands up and he's fighting. He's doing Rocky's punches.
Yes,
he's punching his dad in the face. Right. So I like how they pull through, that emotional line, especially because by the end of this movie, Rocky always respected Apollo. That was the interesting thing. Apollo didn't respect Rocky. He thought he was a chump.
Doofus,
right? Yeah. But Rocky always respected Apollo. He respected him as a fighter. He respected him as an opponent. And Rocky is just not a character who really holds anger in his heart. The only person he ever seems to really express anger toward actually is Drago, because he kills Apollo.
Oh, he killed his friend. Yes.
So
dude, come on.
It's interesting because even in this, when Mr. T, when Clubber Lang is so angry at him, right? He doesn't hold any animosity toward him. That's just not who Rocky is. He's just an opponent, right? You fight the fight and it's over. Yeah. It's not personal.
You don't take it personal. Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody at some point asked Stallone what he thought happened to Clubber Lang after he lost to Rocky. And he's of the opinion that he is a commentator now and a born-again Christian. So that's the story that Stallone wrote in his head for Clubber Lang.
It would have been nice to see that character again.
I think it's interesting that you say that because it just shows how completely he sees this whole world. He sees things. That's what you do as a writer. There are things that you don't necessarily make it onto the page, right? But you see all of this stuff. You might see history, you might see the future, you might see all this other stuff around a character that's not actually there, but it as the writer,
Yeah. And if you think about it, even though Jonathan Majors Damien loses at the end of Creed 3 and Clubber Lang loses, they're the ex-world champions. They have a life now. They have, except for Drago, who had to go, as we know what happened to him, they've got a career now. They can build the rest of their lives off of what they accomplished. So it's not like you should be playing any violins for them anytime soon.
Right. And the thing that I think that Rocky as a character, maybe could impart to some of these guys is like losing is not the end of your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rocky loses fights, it's fine. Like, it's about what you do after you lose, right? So either you can go in a corner and you can cry about it, or you can try to make something of it. So,
win or lose, they'll still make another movie for him.
They will.
Yep.
They definitely were going to make one after this because it was the number 4 movie in 1982 in the U.S. It cost $17 million to make, and it made $270 million at the box office. Of course, 82 was the year of E.T., so that was number 1. Also in front of it, Tootsie.
Star Trek 2.
No. Tootsie was number 2. Okay. And number 3 was An Officer and a Gentleman.
Really?
So Rocky 3 came in 4th behind those 3 movies.
Yeah. I will say probably half that movie budget went to body oil.
No,
they were very shiny throughout this.
It's funny because I was saying there's no reason not to keep making this franchise because they are relatively cheap to make, right? They're always in like real locations. They don't really have special effects, right? The special effect is basically their bodies.
Right, correct. Yeah.
Which, you see them building during these training montages. And, so they're cheap to make and they're always crowd pleasers. So there's no reason not to keep making them, really.
Right. Well, they age out. But that's why you bring in all these other characters that can spin off.
And the other thing that struck me with this was released in May of 82. So it was a Memorial Day weekend release. And, it was a hit that weekend. Its original release date was November 81. So it actually says that the year this is taking place in the movie is 81 because you see the date on Mickey's
tombstone
grave with the tombstone. And they keep referring to events from 3 years ago. So this doesn't happen in real time. So I think from what I read, the events of the first Rocky were supposed to have taken place 4 years before the events of Rocky 3. So it's a bit confusing when you're hearing them talk about 3 years ago, because wait a second, that was 1976, but not in the world of this movie, apparently. Critics, not surprisingly, didn't all like it. Gene Siskel, we see nothing new about Rocky's character except that the tender side of his soul, which made him so appealing, is now virtually missing. Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3 is no longer likable. That's a bit strong.
You're not likable, mister.
Pauline Kael of The New Yorker. The first Rocky was primitive in a relatively innocent way. This picture is primitive, but it's also shrewd and empty and inept.
Wow.
Harsh.
I don't think it's as good as the first 2, like especially in terms of like the human drama. And like I said, they start to get pared down as the series goes on. They get a lot shorter. So there's like less drama, less character development, and they become more about the fighting. And I think this runs parallel to the kind of actor Stallone becomes in the 80s, where he's just making action movies and he's not making things that are, smart as the first Rocky is. It's really beautifully written movie. I personally find it disappointing because I think, especially if you watch him in the first Rocky and you watch him in Copland, this guy, he could have done so much.
Yes, we talked about that before. I think sometimes you get take the fast buck.
Yeah, but not everybody hated it. The Washington Post said it was as much fun as ever, a ground meat and potatoes movie with guys beating the hell out of each other.
I think that's perfect.
That's how I look at it. The Los Angeles Times said somehow Sylvester Stallone has kicked life into what you might imagine is a pretty tired Rocky Balboa and has gotten him up on his feet again. Rocky 3 works, possibly even better than numbers 1 and 2.
Ooh,
that is going out there on a limb.
Praise. Someone's on the payroll.
Morgan Freeman auditioned for the role of Clubber Lang's trainer and didn't get it. To watch that now and have him in there, that would have been glaring. The only Rocky movie where Rocky, besides that flashback to Rocky 2, does not say yo.
Okay.
And in reality, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I read. Mr. T and Carl Weathers did not get along.
I did read that as well. Well, I think it's obvious, whether that's true or not, they didn't like each other in the movie itself. So,
and I didn't notice this while I was watching it, but apparently there's a lot of handheld camera work in here, and Stallone did that purposely because he wanted to show that Rocky's life was now being viewed from the outside rather than being an internal movie. It's like how he's like a media personality now, and that's why he went for a lot of handheld footage, which is interesting.
Yeah,
an interesting choice,
especially in this day and age where everybody has handheld cameras.
So yeah, this is a complete nostalgia trip for me. Again, loved this movie as a kid, and I still think it delivers to this day. Buckets, I'm going to give this 4 solid buckets for Rocky 3.
I'm going 4. Yeah. I enjoyed this immensely.
I'll say same as Creed 3. I'll say 3.25. I'm a fan. Like I said, obviously I'm wearing my Mighty Mix shirt. I watched every single movie this week. I am a fan of this franchise. I'm a fan of Stallone. One thing I just want to say as a side note, as an Italian American, you don't usually get an opportunity to see characters that aren't like in the mafia or singing cooks, so one of the things I've always liked about this franchise is that it's about an Italian American character, but it's not like a stereotypical Italian American experience movie, right? It's not The Godfather or whatever. Correct, yeah. So it's kind of nice to have this out there. And when Creed came out, there was a commentary that I read that was sort of similar, saying, look, it's great to see Black characters in a movie that's not, quote unquote, about the Black experience, right? It's just about people living. And so I've always liked this franchise for that. And I like that Creed carries that through.
Interesting.
Until we review the next Creed movie, whenever, we'll probably not revisit Rocky again for a while.
Although I would put Rocky up there as a 5 bucket.
Oh, yeah.
First one for sure for me.
So that could come. It could come
back around
sooner than later. But what else did we do this week? Anything of note?
Did we all watch The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I was gonna say we might as well stay on the 3 theme with season 3 of Mandalorian, and we just mentioned Carl Weathers, so we got Grief Cargo back.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we all
it.
did. I did. Yep.
Shamefully, I have fallen asleep twice trying to watch it, and it's only 35 minutes.
Oh gosh,
it's been a long week. So,
so are you saying that you haven't completed it yet?
No, I think I missed the same 10 minutes every time. I get the end. I saw the end. There's a little blip in the middle that I may have missed out on. So, yeah, we did watch it. I'm sure that we will talk extensively, maybe at some point.
Did you see the hyperspace scene?
Yes. Once again, stealing my space whales. Although that's a callback to Rebels, actually, to be honest with you.
That was so funny because my son, too, he was like, this has something to do with Ezra Bridger. Yeah, he was like, if you get, I know I've said this to you before, Jim, but if you haven't watched the cartoons, I feel like you're missing stuff in The Mandalorian. Not that it's like unwatchable if you haven't watched the cartoons.
But they're little fun they're dropping these little Easter eggs that, again, Favreau just having a field day here, picking and choosing. We're setting it up.
I did feel like this episode was really a lot of setup.
Because these pirates are coming back. They're not just going to dispose of them now. Now that they've been introduced. And now, does this mean we're never going to see Pedro's face again on this show? Because he's done it once and now he's got to redeem himself.
Now he's paying the price.
Yeah.
Somebody filmed you, dude.
I don't know why he's trying so hard to get back into the favor of this dying religion.
Right, that he now knows is like a cult. He's like, it's like, it's the only thing I know. Sorry, I don't know. But
he's a busy guy. Maybe he's doing this purposely. So all I have to do is show up to a recording studio. I don't even have to be in the helmet anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say, how much work is he really doing?
My son said he saw a meme go by that said by 2030, all prestige television will be Pedro Pascal leading a MacGuffin child.
Listen, there's worse that could happen.
Yeah.
We got a little Bo-Katan. She doesn't even move, and she commands that screen. So
this was mostly set up, which was a little bit disappointing because I think you're hoping there'll be some kind of story in it, but it's basically setting up, the hunt for parts for IG-11, maybe, or
once he tried to kill Grogu, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll rethink using this droid.
I'm gonna need that statue. Well, the parts of it at least.
And then because we never did watch Andor, we've now made an agreement that every week we'll watch Mando, and then we'll watch an Andor, because it's very hard to get
Andor is really good. Andor is really good.
Different takes on the Star Wars universe, and I don't think either one of them is wrong. But Andor is phenomenal.
No, I mean, I love Rogue One. That's actually my favorite Star Wars movie. So, I was excited to watch this. It's just getting people coordinated that I lived with who, if anybody tries to watch a Star Wars show without anybody else.
Yeah, right. It's like, what do you mean you watch it without me? I had that with just my son, so I can imagine the three of you.
Like cause for single combat, So
and I swear, when they were filming the scenes in Navarro, I'm like, that's Galaxy's Edge. It looks like they're walking through Galaxy's Edge, and like they should call it Navarro at this point. Like, forget Batu or whatever they're calling Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, there's some cosplaying going there. Jim, I'm assuming you also watched the last episode of Last of Us?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I couldn't look at that abandoned mall and be like, Jim would never leave there. He would just, that's your new home. Especially if there's a power store.
I'd set up, Put some trucks in front of the doors and I'd be set.
There you go. So I did watch a movie last night. It's on Prime. It is called All Eyes. And it's a weird, quirky, part comedy, part horror, independent film, very independent. You got this established as like this Joe Rogan type of podcast host. And he has a call-in that goes horribly wrong, leaving him disgraced, and he is trying to find a way to redeem himself. And so cue a crazy farmer who invites him out to the farm to help find.
I've seen the thing on this on Prime. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The farmer claims he's got this multi-eyed monster that lives in his backyard, and he wants this guy to come and help fight him. And that's the setup. It doesn't always work. And the ending, I think, is a bit clunky, but still very unique and maybe worth checking out. All Eyes, not that long either. So,
speaking of Amazon, I tried out the new series Daisy Jones and the Six.
Oh yes,
which is pretty much Almost Famous, with a girl singer injected into still water. So even though it does hit a lot of the beats that movie did, I'm a sucker for behind the music style rockumentary, faux rockumentary thing. So it was fun. It's fun to watch.
Well, and I, besides watching all the Rocky movies, started reading a biography of Rock Hudson called All That Heaven Allows. And I'm about 100 pages into it, but honestly, I'm already just so sad because it just keeps highlighting how impossible it was to be gay in this era. I mean, the length, the amount of just having to pretend to be someone you weren't, it's hurting me to read it, but it's good. It's well written. I actually just watched about 2 weeks ago, I think. Criterion had all the Rock Hudson Doris Day movies on for February, so I watched all three of them. And Pillow Talk is still the best one, although its sexual politics are certainly a little dated, but it's still fun to watch the two of them together. And he was just gorgeous, man, in that movie. Just like truly one of the most beautiful humans I've ever seen. But if you want to read good biography, All That Heaven Allows, biography of Rock Hudson.
Okay.
All right. So what are we doing next week?
Oh boy, here we go.
It's all about Scream.
I'm gonna scream.
I want to say that I have a strong suspicion already who the killer is.
Well, we'll see. We'll finally be able to see.
Can you write it on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope? And
that's what I want to do. I want to write it down. I'll
do a Karnak. Do a Karnak.
Tape it, and then I'll unwrap it for you guys next week so you can see if my prediction was correct. I'm going totally by the the trailer.
Okay.
Which is, but if you're able to figure out about the trailer, then that's no fun.
You would only think that if you were like a serious fan, maybe who was reading a lot into the trailer, and if you're not, then I don't think you would suspect. But
I suspect Rudy Giuliani.
But we're doing Scream 6, and because we have to have a Wes Craven acknowledgement here, we're doing New Nightmare.
I'm actually excited for this New Nightmare. I just got the entire Nightmare on Elm
that
Street
box set looks great. Are you going to watch Dream Warriors?
I might have to, because
you got to do the Nancy trilogy. You got to do it's a 137.
Yeah, I need to get my wife out of the house before I do one of these.
and then put the Dokken song on your playlist.
There you go.
Blast it while you're doing your route.
Nice call out the Dokken. We'll mention them next week.
Feels like yesterday that we just talked about the last Scream movie. I don't know if it's the same for you guys.
And you know what I'm doing this week?
This was quick.
You know what I'm doing this week, right?
You're rewatching all of them.
All of them. It's nice. That's a little easier. There's only 5 of them instead of.
So who's actually coming back? So we're not getting Sydney, right? No Sydney.
No. So Courtney Cox is back.
Gail, right?
Hayden Panettiere, who played Kirby in the 4th movie.
They killed Dewey.
Dewey's dead.
All right. Yeah, I'm not liking this already. Hayden Panettiere.
Yep.
Okay.
He played Kirby in the 4th movie. She's coming back. And then the new characters who survived the last film.
Jenna Ortega.
I can't even tell you who the killer was in the last
Jenna
movie.
Ortega, Melissa Barrera, the twins, Randy's niece and nephew.
Yes.
Am I going to have to rewatch that? Because I don't.
You may have to watch 5 if you don't remember.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't. That's the interesting thing too, which is Creed 1 and 2 are both available not only on HBO Max but also on Prime for free. Mm-hmm. Usually, when one of these movies drops, they immediately pull them and then force you to rent them. So
I don't know. I think they want you to watch them so that you'll go see the new one, right?
But they know, yeah, it goes both ways, because they know some people are going to want to refresh, and that's why they put them back behind the paywall. And
speaking of that,
you're going to have to pay $2.99.
Speaking of that, only maybe 3 months ago, all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies suddenly appeared on Shudder. And now that we're talking about one, they're gone. Yeah. So I did watch New Nightmare about 3 months ago, but I want to watch it again. Obviously, I'm forced to get it from the library.
Yeah,
they were all on HBO in the month of October. They had not every single one. They're not there now. So
that's even like the John Wicks that I started watching them on HBO Max, and all of a sudden they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
A month before the new movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I get chasing down on.
We'll put it together for you, folks. We'll put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but feel free to do the homework with us.
Yeah, sure.
And let us know if we got anything wrong, or
make it fun for you as well as us.
Yes, please.
It is fun for us. I hope that comes through.
Sometimes when there's too much homework, I feel stressed.
Thanks for listening, as always.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
My pants are up to my nipples.
Enough of this blubber blubber.